Darshan, for most of us, he needs no introduction because he's a dear friend. He's been here many times, not recently, unfortunately, but when he did come, he stayed sometimes for months, and it was just such a delight to share with him. And he's so steeped in these teachings and joy, and now is in Assisi. We're going to go see him as soon as we can. But we're always delighted when he comes back and joins us. And I think now too, Darshan, since the last time you joined us, you've become a Kriyacharya. So blessings to you and congratulations on that. So, all right. So I'm just going to hand it over to Darshan now, and he'll talk for the next half an hour or so, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Maitri. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all. Thank you, Supriya. It's of course always wonderful to be here, to be with you, to be in Dallas, and that's what I want to feel. I'd like to thank you also for playing and singing, ending the sadhana with that song of Saint Francis. The title of the reading today is "Does God Hide the Truth?" And so when I heard you sing, and I heard the vibration, the devotion, the vibration of your devotion and the whole vibration of Saint Francis, I could feel truth behind that. Truth in the sense of something we can taste in the soul. We can never define it. We can never rationalize it. We can never fix it, but we can open up to it. And we can refine our perceptions. And just, hearing a song like that put me right into the mood of the day. So thank you very much. So the subject is, does God hide the truth? And of course he does. There's no question about that, because if we could all see the truth, then Jesus says the truth will make you free. We would have joy, we would have simplicity, we would have power and strength, and there would be no fear, there would be no uncertainty, because somehow our hearts are attuned, are open to truth. So God does hide the truth, and he wants us to do our growth, to do our personal development, to do our growth through our efforts, through our devotion, through our service, and so on. And no time does he hide it so well as during times of severe polarization, of course. So I'd like to, the idea came to me to speak about opinions, polarization, and then ideas, and to go into the difference between the two. I think that can help us all very much. And so first I'd like to say something to go into the subject of polarization. And Swami Nayaswami Jyotish, some time ago, when he was talking about today's world situation, he mentioned that is the biggest threat, because then you get into a state, into a situation where people have not just opposite positions and opinions, but they don't even want to talk to each other anymore. They don't even want to listen to each other anymore. They're completely attached to their own position. I worked in our school here in Ananda Assisi for 8 years. And at a certain point, I had to teach World War I. And that is a war that is forgotten a little bit. Yogananda mentioned it in a very captivating chapter in the autobiography of a yogi, when he has a vision, and in that vision he is actually part of that war. In any case, I had to study the causes, and one of the main causes of that war, it said, was that there were no neutral states. So there were two opposite sides, and there was no neutral state that could act as mediator. So you had, I think, Russia and Germany and Austria. You had Germany and Austria, and then you had Russia and England and so on, and France. And they were just There was no mediation. There was no one who could mediate. So there you see how important mediation really is, because someone who is impartial, or some power, some force that is impartial, stands there in between, that thin line between two opposite ends, and makes it possible, makes connection maybe possible again, tentatively and with a lot of effort and with a lot of prayer probably, but it is not, you don't need to give up hope at that point. You can still have hope that there will be communication again. So when that isn't there, then conflict is, becomes inevitable. So no wonder that Nayaswami Jyotish said that could be, that is a very big threat, and we all have to be very, very careful about it. So let us try to see how polarization then happens. First of all, I'd like to say that it's not always and necessarily a bad thing, even when conflict happens. And the most meaningful example to us is what happened to Swami Kriyananda, and what he describes, that period of his life, he describes in his book, a place called Ananda, in a chapter which is actually named Polarization. And basically, he himself describes his own life, of course, but he also plays the role, or tries to play the role of the neutral state. So he tries to describe in that chapter just things as they are, not, oh, poor me, they were all against me and they threw me out of their of Master's organization. He doesn't do it that way. He describes two different directions. We don't need to go into detail now about that, because the example that I would like to give speaks for itself also, without going in too much into detail. So basically, Swamiji had the ideal and the dream of founding communities and of sharing these teachings with all sincere seekers, and not trying to institutionalize them too much, but making them available, and then of course live those teachings yourself. And he had this dream of community also. And Master, when he lived there, when he was near Master encouraged him in this dream, but nobody else did, and nobody else even knew about it. And the board of directors of the Self-Realization Fellowship at that time was not at all interested. And so polarization was happening without Swamiji wanting that. He said, I could for the life of me not even imagine that an institutionalized vision of the work of Paramahansa Yogananda could ever win. It was so obvious for him that it should be something free-flowing and much bigger than just an organization. In any way, most of us know, in any case, most of us know that what happened then, the polarization became stronger and stronger and stronger, and he was one man in a pretty hierarchical organization who could not win if there were conflict. And so he didn't win, and he was kicked out. Now, he was expelled, I should say. So, but what was the good outcome of that? At that point, he was left with nothing else but the truth and the depth of his dream of serving Master by founding communities. And so you might say that even though the polarization and the conflict was very painful, obviously, it still made it possible for Swami to go very deep into his own perception of truth and live accordingly, and try to share that perception and with other people who were interested. And so there was a lot of maturity in that perception. One reason being that he was born with this dream, so he had been thinking about it a lifetime, and ideas become deeper and more mature as time passes, and you live more, and you have more life experiences. So it was a good thing out of that polarization, and then the subsequent conflict, something good happened. Anyway, let's get back now to what's happening now, maybe, in the world. So there are, especially, I think, and I do follow the situation a little bit also in the United States. It's a country I think most of you know that I love dearly and deeply. So I do watch sometimes the CNN news and so on. And but not only in America, exactly the same in Italy, in Europe. And right now we can even feel it because we've had, I can tell you during the Q&A part of it, but we've had to make some decisions, and of course people will react to that. So what is then polarization in this case? So what are opinions? What are deep emotions? Very often they are the same. So very often people think they have ideas, but in reality they are pushed and influenced by emotions, such as fear or indignation or anger or a desire, an attachment to something in the world that you don't want to change. There can be many, many reasons. And people think that they're having an idea, a thought, an opinion, but in reality, deep under there, it's mostly emotional. And yoga is the path of stilling the emotions, actually not just stilling them, but neutralizing them by increasing the flow of occult energy in the spine, but also calming the emotion. Because when the emotions are calmed, we get access from the realm, the arena, I should say, of opinions and emotions. We gain access to what Yogananda in one of the affirmations calls the realm of pure ideas. Actually, the affirmation says, my dreams of perfection are the bridges that carry me to the realm of pure ideas. So this is very interesting. When we think of the chapter in the autobiography of a yogi, where Yogananda tells the story of the resurrection of his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. In that chapter, there's a lot of revelation in a way, because Swami Sri Yukteswar describes the hereafter. He describes the astral world where people go to after they die, after they leave the body. And I was thinking, in a way, that astral world for all of us is not so completely, beyond our perceptions. Actually, I would say that a person who goes for the first time to a yoga class begins to have a vague perception of his own astral body, his energy body, because in 99% of the yoga classes, for example, the yoga teacher will guide him or her to be very present with the mind. He will probably, or she will probably, use a lot of visualization. And then maybe at the end of the class, the last 10 minutes, my favorite minutes of each yoga class, you lie down. And when you have a nice teacher, she will even cover you with a nice blanket and guide you in a relaxation. And that in that relaxation, that is not passive. You have to use, again, visualization. And what do you have to visualize? You have to visualize light, feeling your left foot and then your right foot and your left calf, right calf, and so on. And so you visualize, and that is for many people, it certainly was for me, like the first perception of energy in the body, of a more subtle reality than just the flesh and bones and the chemical reactions that are there also, but on the purely physical plane of the body. So the astral perceptions, then the perception of energy, if you take up then this path of self-realization and you learn the energization exercises, of course, your perception of energy grows, especially if you take time for them. And if between each tension and relaxation, you take a little time to feel and to feel what's actually going on, to feel the result of your tension and then your relaxation. And so during that moment of listening or feeling, very important things happen, just as very important things happen between two breaths when you practice Hong Song. So why am I saying all this? Don't think that I'm on a detour. I'll get it back now to our central subject. So what I wanted to say is that when Sri Yukteswar describes the astral world, it is not all that strange. It is, of course, very, very particular, and I would say powerful, and also a blessing that you have a master who is willing to do that, to take away maybe also a lot of our fear of death. But it is not completely strange when he speaks about goblins, maybe, and about astral castles and fairies. And, you know, we as children, we live in that reality. But then in the same chapter, Paramahansa Yogananda asks his guru to speak also about the causal universe and the causal body, and that is much more difficult to perceive. And he says it, you know, it takes tremendous willpower, tremendous self-control, and tremendous powers of concentration. In fact, concentration is the most important instrument or tool on the spiritual path. So, but then I was making the link, the realm of pure ideas. So we do maybe, when we, in our own spiritual life, if we get a chance to meditate a little bit more, and I hope each one of you gets that chance every now and then, or maybe creates that chance, or meditates with others so that you can have longer meditations. But that is when it becomes possible for us to go into a space where the ideas that come to us are calm. Because the causal universe, you might say, basically is the closest to the Father. We get very near to the Father, to the Heavenly Father when we are there. And the ideas that come on that level are the thoughts of God. But we contact them, and of course our way of getting in touch with them can be less or more perfect. So there's always attunement to be done. So when you look at today's world and you look at it only from a physical and then maybe only from an astral viewpoint, it's easy to get confused. Where is the truth? You know, what is true? What is real? And of course, you know, the internet, for example, guides us according to the algorithms. So you feel attracted in a certain direction to follow a certain line of reasoning, and then internet will give you more and more in that direction. And then, whereas your friend or your neighbor who is interested initially in another line of reasoning will be guided in the opposite direction. So internet is by its very nature, not that it's good or bad, but it is it is in a way radicalizing, you might say. It's a bit maybe harsh to use that term, but it does take you with its algorithms in a certain direction, and then other types of information will be excluded from your site. In any case, so we are confused. You might be confused. You may wonder. You may not be confused. You may be more eager to find out what the truth really is. Now, the truth can only be perceived in that realm of pure ideas, and it is never, like we said in the beginning, you know, when Maitri sang that song, that had a ring of truth about it, and I could feel it. But if you want to know the truth, for example, about some medical issue, some political issue, you want to know the truth about a certain person, you want to know the truth about what is trying to happen in your profession, and so on, at that point, we have to try to access, and it's all directional. You can never say I'm there completely, but you can say I'm heading in that direction, that realm of calm and pure ideas, and just linger there, dwell there a little bit, not trying to rationalize or think or gain more information. We don't need that at that point. The ideas that are there are calm. Now, on a personal level, when we grow and when we are on a spiritual path, it means that we are by no means adults at the age of 18. It means that we are embarked on a lifelong path of personal development on all the levels, personal, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So when we do our growth, we will find that certain ideas become mature within us. And then we are also guided to not speak about it necessarily with anyone, or with people that maybe, you know, you feel that there's a conversation there is not necessary. What happens if we access the realm of pure ideas and then we get back and we are so enthusiastic about those deep feelings, about those deep perceptions, that we want to share them with other people? What happens? Well, we risk when we do that, because as soon as we start talking about it, you bring it down on a level in your own where there's more, probably a little bit more emotion and attachment. You start talking about it with other people, so you expose those ideas to the emotional, possibly emotional reactions of your friends. But so basically your ideas might become opinions again. So that sounds like a dilemma, doesn't it? So we cannot even speak about the highest truth that we perceive. Well, that's not true, because Jesus says the truth will make us free, but that also means that the truth will make us strong. So in other words, the real changes on earth happen through magnetism. And if we try to find access to that realm of calmness, to the causal world, basically, and you can do some studying about it again by rereading that chapter from the autobiography, The Resurrection of Sri Yukteswar. So if we can gain access to that realm, what happens is that the ideas, our perceptions, will change our aura. They will change our magnetism. Sometimes you may express your perceptions through a certain line of action. Sometimes you may express them by talking with a certain person about it. Sometimes you may express it by not talking, or talking less, just remembering silence is the altar of spirit. And sometimes you may express it through writing, for example, or you can write a poem, or you can write something, and it becomes mature then, and the expression then also is mature. You do not throw, as it says, your pearls before the swines. Okay, so there's no need always to engage in controversy, in debates, in conversations. It's not necessary. It doesn't change much, or very rarely does it change things. It's not our profession. Most of us are not doctors. Most of us are not politicians. And it doesn't really change. But what we can do to change the world, obviously, then is to go from the arena of opinions and emotions and try to find your access to the realm of pure ideas, very close to the Father. And that will give you the happiness and the power to navigate even in times of fierce conflict and polarization. So that's it. Jai Guru.